The globalists have been systematically engaging in a massive brainwashing campaign, telling the public that torture is a good idea. And now we've seen the aftermath of torture. The Joseph Mengele-style abuses include killing detainees and harvesting their organs. But they don't just torture people to death. They do things so horrible we can't even mention them here. And there's no mystery when it comes to finding out who ordered all of this ultra-brutal torture at Camp Xray at Guantanamo Bay and Gitmo and 32 other camps in Iraq. Alberto Gonzalez and Chertoff and the rest of Bush's crew openly wrote memos detailing how torturing people unto death is an okay thing to do. It's part of the public record. The White House and Pentagon ordered the torture, but when they got caught, they just burned a few of their underlings. The Pentagon's own reports admit that 90% of those that were picked up at checkpoints in Iraq were totally innocent. But that didn't stop them from being tortured. In fact, the Army's own report admits that military dogs were used to bite and frighten detainees, that women were brutally raped, that detainees were beaten to death and sodomized with large objects dripping with battery acid. People's children were also raped in front of them to attain answers. This is the same type of mentality we see from serial killers. And it's riddled with all sorts of perverted sexual abuse. Is this what the land of the free and the home of the brave has become? After 13 years of sanctions, over 1.5 million Iraqis died, 700,000 of them children. And now thousands of private contractors have taken over the torture where the Pentagon left off, following in the footsteps of other famous control freak serial killers and torturers. The only reason the elite is selling us on torture is because they want to condition us to where we will accept its use against us. And it's been going on for decades in America, in the prisons, and against pro-life demonstrators, environmental activists, and anyone else that doesn't totally submit to their tyranny. The footage you're seeing is from the late 1980s and early 1990s, where the police openly pulled out nunchucks, started wrapping it around the arms of peaceful pro-life demonstrators and brutally breaking them, simply because they refused to get off the side of the sidewalk. The police thought it was their right to break people's arms because they didn't follow their orders.
They used nunchucks on the rescuers. This is an illegal martial arts weapon, and merely possessing one in California is a felony. To be attacked with one is assault with a deadly weapon. Never before in the history of America have nunchucks been used on non-violent protesters. This is the gruesome sight of what happened. The police, in unprovoked cruelty, wrapped the nunchucks around Michael Hausman's arm and broke it. When lawyers went to federal Judge Tashima to request he order the police to cease using them, he denied the request, saying in so many words that pro-lifers could not prove they were in any danger.
I can't tell you what it's like to be lying on the ground with police officers on a top of you, using all sorts of torture holds to make you walk. You can't walk even if you wanted to walk, and their sole intent is to torture you, and then listening to the screams of the people.
When you bring out riot sticks, it's usually because you expect to see some serious opposition, so you put on helmets and you put on face masks and you carry shields. These policemen were bareheaded.
But here it was calculated torture, and the policemen were enjoying the pain. They laughed at the people screaming, and all of us screaming, all grown men, mature men. And you couldn't help but scream. What happened was when the two nightsticks squeezed on the wrists, they cut off the nerve ends and the flow of blood, and your hands swelled up to almost twice the size, and they turned black.
It didn't matter whether you were a woman, a man, an old person, it didn't matter what your age, sex, or anything, that they were just there. They were going to brutalize everybody. And I think probably to the women more particularly, that they were very angry that they couldn't get a young woman like myself to walk. And I could tell that it was a pride issue.
This is an important illustration because it shows us how long this tyranny has been going on in this country. And if they can get away with it with one group, they can get away with it against everybody. The fact of the matter is the establishment and its enforcers have been setting the precedent for a long time to torture women in plain view of the public, to use illegal nunchucks and break people's arms. And now in Iraq, they have these big live TV shows with all the people confessing after they've been openly tortured. And in 2005, people they take into hospitals who refuse drug tests are restrained and then tasered repeatedly until they go ahead and urinate in a cup. And there are hundreds and hundreds of examples we don't even have time to cover here. The point is, this is all macabre and terrifying, and the New World Order is conditioning us to accept it. We must resist it. You know that I said that the government's promoting torture. They're promoting torture on TV and the dramas and the fiction, and they're also promoting torture not just in fiction, but in the newspapers. Alan Dershowitz calling for torture, the New York Times calling for torture. Oh, you know, these are terrorists that attacked us. We need to torture them. This has been part of a systematic plan to brainwash us. And then, of course, I pointed out that you can't believe confessions from anyone who's been tortured. I also added that you can't trust a government that will torture people, and anyone whose conscience will allow them to torture is someone who enjoys it, sadistic psychopaths, and so you're creating, you're legalizing, you're condoning something that Joseph Mengele of the Nazis enjoyed, something the Romans enjoyed, something the Aztecs enjoyed, and it's a very, very dangerous precedent. And finally, the mainstream media is beginning to point this out, but sickeningly kind of acting like it's a good thing and saying, oh, these shows where they torture people every episode, it's really moral, and they're telling us that it's bad. That is not the case. I've seen many of these shows. They're telling us it's good. And before I get to this USA Today article, Fictional 24 brings real issues of torture home. TV hero tactics debated in world after Abu Ghraib. Just one of 32 camps in Iraq. And before I go over that, I wanted to point out that here's an Associated Press article today. White House defends video news release. And this actually came out March 14th, yesterday. White House defends video news releases. And they admit here that over $200 million, over $200 million has been spent just in the last 3 years by the White House with these fake newscasts that they mail out to even local stations in Austin. Long before it was in the news a year ago when this first broke, I said, folks, I'm seeing fake newscasts. I'm seeing government infomercials where they don't tell you it's the government. I mean, you could just tell. Look at our leader. Man, he really cares. Wow, the people really agree with him. We need this Patriot Act. We need to give up our freedoms. Oh, we need the prescription drug plan. I mean, this is scary. At least in Nazi Germany or Communist Russia or China today, people know what government propaganda broadcasts are. Now, I already had read this in industry publications 3 years ago when these shows were in development. But now there was a Reuters article last Friday that I covered on the radio where they admit that 24 and Threat Matrix and CSI Miami and Boston Legal are given large sums of cash by the government. And that's why every show is the same. They break an innocent man's arm, torturing him, but it's good because it fights terrorism. on most of the shows, same thing in England, exact same storylines, just the names are changed. But the basis of the story is exactly the same. They will torture 8-year-old girls. They will torture young men. They will, in some cases, have to kill children to make their parents talk. And at the end, they're good. Killing children is good. Anyone who's against it may be with Al-Qaeda. And is there any surprise that USA Today, yesterday, ran this? Fictional 24 brings real issues of torture home. TV hero tactics debated in war after Abu Ghraib. And let me read part of this article for you, because they couch it by the time you read. I won't read the whole thing, but you can go to prisonplanet.com or usatoday.com and read it. We have it for posterity in our format, so we can document what they're up to and track their propaganda. But we also have it in USA Today's format, if you'd like to go look at it. But they couch it in, well, the show's fighting torture, and it's really good. And, yeah. Fictional 24 brings real issue of torture home. TV hero tactics debated in world after Abu Ghraib. In the post-9/11 world, torture has hit the public radar in news reports about Abu Ghraib, congressional questions of cabinet nominees, and increasingly as a featured interrogation tactic on Fox's serial thriller 24. Then they put an advertisement for it last night. And listeners, I don't watch TV per se. I'm on TV. But I read all the synopses. I can read what's on 100 TV shows in an hour. Or I can spend 100 hours watching 100 TV shows. So I read all this week. They torture the 8-year-old girl to make her answer questions. This week, the militia works with Muslims. We must arrest them all. Next week, we have to torture the government official's son. It's good. All these shows. I mean, it's next week, the child has a chip in him, and every child gets a chip. The government pays for it. The government is taking over your TV. And you just sit there, well, I like that show. That's all I know. Fictional 24 brings real issues of torture home. And it goes on. As politicians, pundits, and public debate the extreme interrogation, 24, which is enjoying, now it's not called torture. While we debate extreme interrogation, it's pressure. Sodomizing someone with a giant object dripping with battery acid. 70 to 90% of those arrested at checkpoints, totally innocent of even the misdemeanor crimes they're being held for. These jail guards raping them. Oh, it's their job, a job they're happy to do. Serial killer type stuff. I know I'm extreme. Raping people with objects dripping with battery acid is good. I'm wrong. I think it's bad. I'm close-minded. I'm extreme. I understand. God, every line is propaganda. I could spend all day on this. Have we lost our souls? To thwart a terrorist plot, it goes on, as politicians, pundits, and public debate extreme interrogation. It's not torture now, see? They just redefined it right there. 24, which is enjoying a surge in critical praise and a 32% jump in viewers this season, has jumped to action. To thwart a terrorist plot, hero Jack Bauer, Kiefer Sutherland, a little moron twit, and his counter-terrorist unit have shot a suspect in the leg while interrogating him, subjecting the son of the defense secretary to high-tech sensory disorientation, stun-gunning a suspected but innocent colleague, and using a lamp cord to shock information from a businessman. And that's just one episode. For 24 producers in their fourth season of constructing a save-the-world scenario that must be completed in one day, the use of torture is about real-time drama, not politics. It goes without 24 conceit that we need information and don't have days to break the person. Sometimes we don't even have hours, executive producer Howard Gordon says. Meanwhile, all these big neocon pundits and liberals like Alan Dershowitz, before this came out, said the same. Before 9/11, the Weapons and Tactics of Law Enforcement magazine, or the Firearms and Weapons of Law Enforcement, April issue 2000, was about Do you torture a terrorist if there's a bomb and they won't defuse it? And see, that introduces this moral dilemma thing of, well, maybe I would. Just so you accept it so they can do it to you. And then again, this is the exact same thing. And then meanwhile, the controlled opposition of Amnesty International, which is globalist controlled, whitewashes everything. They praise the show. Oh, it's good. Well, we know it's Defense Department funded. Alistair Hoggitt of Amnesty International credits 24 in A&E's MI5, which follows the British Secret Service. They're with realistic depictions that provide a clear idea of what torture involves. They do more than educate. They do more to educate than desensitize. Boulder Dash. They got shows in England on Channel 4 where they built a mock Camp X-ray and they torture people and they tell you it's good. Do you like scientific minds coldly calculating and looking at you like you're in a petri dish, how to manipulate you, how to control you, how to make you feel like you're part of this system? Do you like that? Because I'll talk to some of these dumbed down people up here at the station in the hall and I go, you know, these shows are, one of these shows will be on where they're torturing somebody. I've probably seen torture 5 times up here just while they got a TV on in the background and somebody's in a torture chair and the person torturing them goes, I don't want to have to do this. See, they're good. The person goes, screw you. See, they're bad. They deserve it. And she goes, I'm sorry. They torture them to death. They're in a torture chair. Blood coming out. But they're good. I'm sorry you're dead now. And I've said to the person, this was about a year ago, I said, I'm watching it down here, and I go, and they're like, I just like the show. So what? Hey, you know. See, it just gets you desensitized. Every week I have a stack of articles where they pull somebody over, think he's on drugs, take him to jail. He refuses to urinate. They strap him down in full restraints. This is the Associated Press. They strap him down in full restraints. And he says, I can't urinate. I don't need to. The officer says in front of everybody, all right, stand back. Pulls out his taser, shoots him. Guy electrocutes, 16 seconds, dangerous pulse level. People are dying every day. He's chained down. All right, now you ready? I can't. Does it again. Over and over again. And they put it in the Associated Press like it's normal and good. Well, this is how we get answers now. And I guarantee you, I bet you $1 million, I'm trying to get the cop on, that he watches 24, Threat Matrix, that he watches CSI Miami, that he watches these shows. The Shield. I'm sitting in a Chinese food restaurant. They got a big screen TV on. It's The Shield. The cop is forcing sexual stuff on somebody to get answers. A man's being raped. The cops are beating people. People send me piles of videotapes every week, like 5 or 6. You pop in, last episode of NYPD Blue, they're torturing. Pop in this show, they're torturing. Pop in that show, God, it's just everywhere. Every show, pell-mell, 24/7, just unending. And I know at least 4 of these shows, the government pays for it. Pays for it. Because they love you. And then it mirrors the arguments that Alberto Gonzalez has given. The same guy that says the White House, our new Attorney General, the same guy that says that they can run $240-something million of fake newscast when the Congressional Budget Office and the General Accounting Office have told him it's illegal. It's a felony. Remember he said in the memos, we are above the law. We make the law. No, the executive executes the law. Oh, yes. That's in your Bill of Rights and Constitution. I know they don't teach that in school anymore, and I'm not being condescending. And they all know that. The executive executes the law. The judiciary looks at it and sees if it's constitutional. And the most powerful branch, because it has the greatest separation of power, that's what the Founding Fathers gave it the most power, not 9 justices, not 1 president, but over 400, House and Senate. 2 separate bodies. They make the laws. Let me say it again. They have the power. They are elected, just like our sheriff is the most powerful person in Travis County. The dumb sheriffs don't even know that. Some little Fed
pissant shows up, they follow orders.